So Ryan, we got you back in Tokyo, and we were here the other week talking to you, and we did a pretty good interview, I think.
Okay.
On the cannabis industry in the
Sure,
US, and
sure.
some of the colourful people involved with that.
Sure.
But later on, you said that you liked what you said, but you felt that you had a lot more to say.
Yeah, so, there's a lot more topics. Clearly, I could talk for days on the subject. I've been in the industry for years, and, we still have a lot of fight left to have. And, whenever we complain about real issues, people always are so easy to say, well, that's what you signed up for. Damn straight. That's why we're here to talk, and that's why we're here to keep fighting. So there's a lot of issues that I think are, demonstrating some of the worst of American business. And, I think that we're way overdue to just straight up legalize marijuana.
Yeah. I mean, why do people complain when you sign up for a fight and then they complain when you fight? Like, if you signed up for that, then they should expect you to keep arguing, right?
Well, no one's complaining that we're fighting. They just keep beating us down.
Right.
So, I think in Colorado, as we mentioned, I'm specifically speaking about Pueblo County. We have numerous laws that the state and the local bureaucrats are very openly breaking, and they don't give a shit, even if it really is doing everything that they say that they're against, which is specifically devastating small businesses that are sticking their necks out to do the right things, make sure that we have clean product that, you don't find on the black market. The black market has all sorts of contaminants. Specifically, the biggest one is Eagle 20, which a lot of the growers will spray all over their crops because, it's still sellable then. And it's a very strong pesticide, and if you consume it, smoke it, it can really do massive damage to your body very quickly. And additionally, even the statistics and even our opponents will admit that access for those under 21 has really gone down. These are the gains of having legal alcohol or legal marijuana versus illegal, is you actually have safer product, you have less violence in the actual business, and you have far less access for minors. So those are some of the upsides. The tax revenue that they get is tremendous. I mean, Colorado is a fairly small or low populated state. We've already made $1 billion for the state. That's not small ball, so I think there's a lot of good. I think that with that said, it's very clear that there is a war on the small businesses.
And everyone wants their piece of that pie, right?
Yeah, I mean, everyone feels that because it's still federally legal, that they don't need to follow state law. They don't need to really care about the people that they hurt. They're going to take it. They're going to take it for themselves. They're not going to spend it on the research, even if the state law says they're supposed to. As I told you before, in Colorado City, one of the municipalities that I'm in, they broke the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights because we're the only business that was in Colorado City active at that time. And we were supposed to have a right to contest on the ballot initiative, but they didn't even tell us that they were going to try to raise our taxes. And it's not small. It's 5% of our gross coming up this year. It's 4% of our gross right now, but that's a tremendous tax that goes to their general fund. And we found out about it a month and a half before it started. That put the other startup business that was in our municipality out of business in a few months. Dozens and dozens of jobs, people's families that are counting on us. The whole reason that I went back to the States to get into business, I was in Japan here for many years, still own property here in Japan with my wife. And I went back to help make jobs and fight for my people, the Americans, and they shit all over us. They shit all over us, all the people that wanted to follow the rules and pay the taxes and do things the right way.
And yet, Colorado is kind of held up as the model state, like the one everyone wants to copy.
It was, and now everyone says don't be like Colorado.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I've heard people say don't be like California.
Oh well, we have the same tax rates that California has. So and it's even worse than that because, like I was telling you about Colorado City, the guy that pushed so hard to pass these tax laws demanded I pay him in cash, told me that his bank wouldn't take our checks even though we have banking. He comes to my cultivation, takes cash, And a month later, they called me up and say they never got the cash. He didn't go to jail. He decided to step down. And
So he got busted doing that.
yeah, everyone knew about it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how he thought he'd get away with that, especially because he was on camera taking the cash from me. But, you know, that's one example of many. And, you know, I also look at the state law, which says we should be taxed like alcohol, yet alcohol has, you know, 5 or 8%, depending on, you know, which tier, on their gross that they'll have as an excise tax. I first have a 26% tax at the store, followed by a 23, soon to be 25% tax at my grow, followed by tens of thousands of dollars worth of license renewals. So, you know, when you wonder why there's no African Americans in business in Colorado, I know one, and it's because very few of them are, you know, previously multimillionaires, the way that the big groups that have all these tax advantages in the Colorado system, they are. So, you know, when you know, we were talking about Kamala Harris and her positioning of a new national legalization, which includes an additional 5%, which I would imagine would be on gross. I would imagine it'd be on every tier of business, because why not take it? We just don't have any rights. So if she thinks she's going to use that money to help African Americans get into business, you might as well be stamping license plates, because that's how it feels. And you're going to bankrupt people. You're going to have them running scared and wanting to oppose America. You're going to take the best and the brightest of any of these communities and just throw their heads on the concrete and change the laws and change the taxes and change the rules after they've already committed, after they've already gotten into the water. See massive tax raises, massive fee increases for really nothing, So, you know, that's the real picture in Colorado. They just raised the licensing fees for renewals. These are businesses that, you know, we're giving them millions of dollars. I don't know how much we're giving Pueblo County, and it's just never enough. They have a $25,000 license renewal in the city of Pueblo for a dispensary. How can a small business survive? You know, it used to be $2K. They just are relentlessly not stopping. So, you know, that's the scene. And as I mentioned, California, they have 50 new ballot initiatives to raise taxes just on our industry. Everyone knows California is the dumbest place to go do business, but you know, in a state where the legal market is getting hammered by the black market. I mean, we even find California black market product in Colorado.
I've heard that, yeah.
Well, our taxes are too high to compete with them.
Yeah.
You know, and they can just drive it over, and, you know, good luck stopping that. They haven't stopped it for forever. And, you know, it increases government corruption. You know, when I go to the Cannabis Cup, I meet people that have been black market traffickers for decades. And they told me that they've had people from the Coast Guard to the South Carolina State Troopers unloading the packages for them. And, you know, money talks when you have that type of black market and, you know, vast price advantage and no other outlets that are legal. And I think that the way that they're doing it now is really giving a huge tailwind to the black market. So
Seems to me that like they've known all along this is going to be real lucrative, and if you start any industry that's lucrative, whether it's gambling or, you know, okay, cannabis. I was gonna say something else, but I'm trying to think of the clean ones.
Sure.
Yeah, any kind of vice industry. If you suddenly make it legal, obviously it's going to bring in a lot of money, and you think like, if you're the government or if you're organized crime or, well, both, you might think, all right, you know, we can just bring all this out in the open. I can just milk them as much as I want now.
Yeah, so what ends up happening is you have what's called fascist weed, which is what people are calling the legal marijuana in Colorado now, and freedom weed, which is the black market stuff that their buddy grew that's poorer and they can support them. And, you know, maybe it's not a huge grow, but they can get up in their underwear at 2 p.m. every day, water some plants and make a living. You know, so I think it's time for us to mature. If we really are looking for what's best for our country, it's not what we have right now. And I think it also it just the more you learn about it, the more you realize how bad and how corrupt it is. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, the government institution that regulates what drugs are and aren't legal, is 75% funded by big pharma. That's multiple billion, $3+ billion a year.
I'm not at all surprised either.
Well, this is why in America, the number one killer of Americans is our medicine. The number one bankrupter of Americans is our hospital system. It's because we let the wolves regulate the sheep stables, and it's clear to me that our current president, Donald Trump, has not drained the swamp. And when we talk about, I guess the next thing we're going to talk about is the different politicians and why this coming election cycle is so big, specifically for marijuana. I think this will be a major national issue.
Yeah, all right. Just before you do, I haven't really seen much from the Republican side, maybe because they don't really have any candidates this time except for Trump.
Yeah.
But on the Democrat side, they're falling over each other to try and
legalize,
be as liberal as possible, because it's primary phase. You got to kind of expect that. But all of them have expressed a desire to legalize cannabis in some form or another.
Yeah.
Do you think anyone or all of them are actually serious about that?
So, clearly Kamala Harris just launched that new bill on the Senate floor recently, where she wants an additional 5% tax on our industry. And she says she's going to use that for empowering the African Americans and disaffected. I just don't think that she's doing any of the downtrodden people any favors by getting them into our industry, especially in her home state of California. If you care about the African Americans in California, tell them to stay the hell away from the legal industry. So I would say...
Wasn't her old job putting people in prison for crimes like that?
And she admitted to smoking weed to music that, it was when she was a DA. Yeah, so I don't know. I know people that work in the justice, we'll call it industry, and some of them are using illicit drugs that I know of. So, it's just the reality of the lies that they tell the weak-minded to really, keep this whole racket going. So, I would say this though, when it comes to Trump. You'd be blown away at how much of the marijuana industry supported Trump. When we
supported,
yeah, exactly. Like many of the promises from many of the presidents of the past, there was a lot of broken promises, specifically drain the swamp. I think Donald Trump, if he thinks he's going to say, well, after I get elected again, I'll do this. Yeah, fuck you. It's, you'd be blown away at how much of his support base is actually moderate people in the middle that are looking at the Democratic candidates with a lot of interest. Specifically, Elizabeth Warren, in my opinion. And I think that, Donald Trump is not competent enough to actually have that fair taxation that he said too. So the 25% tax on everybody, we still have the working poor paying, massive tax rates when, the big massive Apples and Amazons and Googles are getting paid to make billions and billions of dollars a year and not pay their workers to boot. Donald Trump really let us down, in my opinion. I think the whole drain the swamp thing, to me, to say that he had a problem with our healthcare system, to me said we'd probably see some reform in the FDA. The fact that the FDA has the balls to say that there are no medical benefits to marijuana, when for decades, tens of thousands of medical journal articles have been written by board certified doctors of the medical benefits of marijuana on a plethora of applications, says to me that the FDA is a racket. They're enforcing a business advantage for their financial supporters. And this is one of the many things that is eroding public confidence that our government is anything but a negative force for the world. And if we hate our own government, what about the rest of the world? They all hate us, so it's just a bad recipe.
It's just that, I mean, apart from the promises of that extra tax revenue, like I can't really see any reason why a politician would support cannabis legalization, because it's like it's not really going to bring them any benefit, and if they leave the status quo as is, like they don't really suffer for it. So they don't really see it as a priority. That's not my view.
I think that there's a huge tailwind for presidential candidates who promise to legalize marijuana. I think one of the things that a lot of the politicians don't realize is the truth about marijuana. First of all, the majority of my customers and all of my businesses are 50 years or older, and it's no close call. That is the voting base of every campaign is the senior citizens in the older markets, because they show up to vote every time.
Right.
And they're the ones that are buying legal adult use marijuana, and they are finding major medical benefits from it. Additionally, it's just better for society. I mean, I heard John Boehner, the former Speaker of the House, mention that all pharmaceutical use is down in states with cannabis access over 10%, and opioid use is down over 30%.
Was he saying that as a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it doesn't matter if you like him or not, and I could find a lot of reasons not to like him, especially because after fighting marijuana for so many years, now he's taking a major financial position to legalize, which a lot of people find hypocritical and carpetbagging, so to say. But at the same time, I just support a very fair legalization. We don't need extra taxes. If you make businesses that make money, they have to pay taxes. You'll make money. That's how it works. If you make money, you pay taxes. If you put all of these people out of business and you make it all go back to the black market, no one gets taxes. No one pays payroll taxes. No one pays income taxes. So, they're just not doing the math, in my opinion. Additionally, the big thing is they're not caring about the welfare of our people in our country. And because of that, they're reducing the legitimacy of an already struggling, country to have legitimacy. And I think we're going to continue to see, lower voter turnout time and time again. So.
I think so too. Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they want.
But I think there's a lot of people that support Trump that are, Ron Paul libertarians. There is no Republican base. The Jeb Bush supporters and that squad that always votes Republican, 5 to 10% of Americans that always vote Republican no matter what. I don't think that's really what got Trump into office. I think it was the middle of the road people. And I think that, the middle of the road people are really urgently looking for someone who will drain the swamp. And we will not support a president who will continue to let government and finance and pharma and all of that continue to take advantage of us.
Yeah, you're totally right.
I think it's a much bigger issue. Like I said, with a huge chunk of the voting base, and as everyone comes out of the closet after legalization, what you find out is senior citizen heavy. It's not 25-year-old, tattooed, people. Not to say that they don't have some of those people that smoke pot, but the vast majority of the consumption is by the elderly.
Which includes us these days.
Not really. Anyway. We're not even in that group, to be honest. You're not 50 yet.
Not yet.
So anyways, there's that. But I would say also too that I think that when it comes to the Democratic candidates, I think that someone like Elizabeth Warren does have a huge appeal to the Trump base, because the Trump base is not white supremacists.
No,
the Trump base are the working poor that can't feed themselves, that can't pay their bills, that are terribly productive and are being extorted by every direction. And they're looking for someone that's going to actually tax these multi-billionaire companies. They're looking for someone that wants to actually, have some benefit for the student loan debt crisis and all that. I mean, as long as they don't keep these bullshit universities running, I think the Trump supporters are going to support that, getting rid of those student loan debt forgiveness. So yeah.
I mean, I look around, I see corruption anywhere, like not just everywhere, not just in the US.
Oh, sure.
Every country you can imagine, like where I live, where I'm from.
Australia.
Yep. Well, I mean, we're not even started with like cannabis legalization there. There's like some
Medical.
medical trials here
Yeah.
and there, but it's going to be years. I think. But yeah, you're right that like tax might be a good persuader for government officials, but health is the one that's going to sway the people. Like they found that like most people who support legalization support it for health reasons.
Yeah.
So if you can find the politicians who are also like persuaded by that message, like that's the one that we need to push.
Yeah, I think I'll engage with any politicians that are willing to. I think that most of them are bought and sold. Before we had talked about Cuomo, when I asked one of his core, inner office employees, you really need to start worrying about the working poor. You need to stop taxing the poor so much. He says, no one cares about the poor.
Yeah.
And that response just really shook me and got me very angry that this many-year governor of New York feels that way, that it's okay to keep taxing the shit out of people that make 20 grand a year in New York. I don't think a lot of politicians do care about the people. I think a lot of politicians, it's a job. They're lawyers. They want to make money, and they don't care who gets hurt. And that's very clear. And the people that I respect in government say the same thing. They say that, Washington's too broken and they need to leave because there's nothing that they can do there. And I think that's very sad that, my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, everything that they built and fought for is so easily stolen by people that, we have no way to defeat. We really need to figure that out, and we need to figure that out soon. And that's why I believe Trump was elected, was to go drain the swamp.
Do you think Trump's even trying to drain the swamp?
I don't know. I think that there's a perspective that, he's so barraged by, all these crazy things all the time. And that he doesn't have the actual law writing allies that he really could use. At the same time, if he really made a good, hard campaign on going after the fair taxation, everyone that opposes him, would have a really hard time in their district going back and saying, I stood up for the big corporate interests. Yeah, it's just, you gotta start fighting before you win.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen him draining any swamp yet. There was a little bit in the beginning, but the fact that the FDA is still 75% funded by Big Pharma is the reason why nothing has gotten fixed in our medical system and why marijuana is still illegal. The medical industry is very afraid of marijuana because they know that people don't need opioids. They don't need a lot of this bullshit patented, synthetic produced stuff, which the FDA said, why would you want an organic cannabis? We already have a legal licensed synthetic CBD, which, by the way, doesn't work.
Right.
So, yeah.